Welcome to Crossroads and Cauldrons. We are two witches with jobs, families, and busy lives just like you. We talk about weaving the web of community, practicing magic, and life in the Deep South. Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. You are listening to Crossroads and Cauldrons podcast. I sounded like a robot. Crossroads and Cauldrons podcast.
Sounds like we're doing NPR.
Crossroads and Cauldrons podcast.
Oh God.
Welcome to the show. It's hot, you guys.
It's very hot.
So we're on my other porch because it's rainy today. And I forgot there's not a fan over here. So
We're sticky.
we're just gonna be a little
No sticky.
melty. It's fine. It's gonna be fine. So
We'll
how are
suffer
you?
for y'all. That's okay.
Yeah. So what are you doing? What's going on? It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Just been working and ready for fall to be here. Ooh, I went into Bath and Body Works last week and smelled all the fall smells that they got out.
So you're hankering for fall?
Oh God, I'm so ready for cinnamon candles and pumpkin spice and apple and
Oh, yeah.
all of that. I'm ready.
I would love some fall. You know how that like fall smell that you get right before it hits?
Yeah.
That's what I'm ready for. So
Indeed.
it's not even August yet.
No.
Motherfucker.
God help us.
It's not even August yet. We're still kind of preheating.
Eating. Shut your mouth.
I'm just saying. It was like 115 last week.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm not okay with it.
Me either. That's why I like air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad I work inside.
You know, a lot of my friends up north are also melting. And they're like, it's hot. And they're like, well, I shouldn't complain to you because it's hotter down there. I was like, yeah, but we have air conditioning.
Yeah.
Y'all are dying.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I feel really bad for them. Most of the houses there don't even have air conditioning.
Yeah, that's crazy. I used to not need it.
Well, I know. Well, and it'll still get cold at nighttime. So I'm going up to, what am I going? I'm going to New Hampshire next month.
Oh, cool.
And, yeah, it gets so nice and cold at night, even in August. So I'm excited about that. Well, I guess we need to talk about that. If you're going to be in the New Hampshire area, or if you would like to travel to the New Hampshire area, come see me at Temple Fest in August 27th. It's going to be one day only.
Yep.
It's going to be a great day. Laura Tempest Zakroff is going to be there. Nathaniel, her husband, is going to be there playing as well.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to have Christopher Benzak, me, several, Danielle Dion is going to be there. What was I trying to say? I don't know. I was trying to change her name. She's going to be there. Lots of folks are going to be there presenting.
Cool.
So it's going to be a good day. Come see us. Come see me. My workshop is at 6 p.m., right before the evening ritual. So if you want to come to my workshop and take a little nap and rest up for the ritual, that's
a little nap.
fine. We're going to do a meditation. It's going to be good. Yeah.
Okay,
That's
cool.
that. And I just got back from Mystic South, like last week.
How was that?
It was great. It was so nice to be around people, you know,
Yeah.
again, that, you know, and we've been around each other, but, you know, I'm used to y'all. So, but, you know, it
Other
was
people.
nice to kind of be in a space where you've got all kinds of different traditions, different perspectives,
Right.
different people that you don't see, new people, you know? So it was really, really nice. I got to see some of our previous guests on the show. So Evo was there, Tempest was there, Keldon was there. His episode came out just before we went. He was there.
That was a good episode, too.
Who else? Oh, Heron Michelle was there. She's a delight in person. Like, I think she was pretty delightful on the computer, too. But she's absolutely the sweetest. She also has a lot of fun stories. So if you ever pin her down, just say, hey, Heron, tell me a story.
Oh,
And she will. Okay. She will have one ready to go. Jason Mankey was there. Who else? I'm trying to think of past guests that were there. Opal Luna was there. Who else? I don't know. I'm running out of brain space. But it was great. And I also met some people that I was not familiar with their work that were really interesting. So I'm going to try to get them on the show. I spoke with John Beckett. I'm going to get him on the show. And several other people that I'm looking at interviewing for the show. So it was great.
Yay.
It was great. We had, there was a dance workshop too. I can't remember her name. Terry something. It was very good. I want to bring her here in person to do some workshops with us. So it was a good time. It was very good. The space is beautiful. It was a hotel conference, which is great, especially in the summer in the South. Love hotel conferences because you can sleep in a bed and have a shower. It's great. It was great. And there was lots of just kind of after hours, hanging out, talking.
Coffee.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant, coffee. Having a few drinks, chatting, sharing. It was really nice. I needed it more than I realized. So I'm glad I went. And I took a friend with me, so that was fun. It was not and it was her first time ever at a pagan conference, and she had a blast. So it's a good time. Very good time.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So I might submit a few workshops next year and see if they'll have me.
I hope I get to go next year.
You should come.
It was just too short a notice for me this year, but
yeah, I wasn't. When I was planning out my year in January, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna go to work. If there's even gonna be, So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the rest of the year holds. So that was Mystic South.
Cool.
What else? That's pretty much me. I've been focused on that and getting ready for Temple Fest.
Cool.
And I'm not teaching right now, so that's delightful.
Yay.
I am starting to get ready for the next year and choosing locations for classes and dates and all that stuff. So registration for my upcoming year of Temple of Witchcraft Mystery School classes should be opening probably next month. And so if you're in the Mississippi area, those will be coming out next month, so you can just keep your eyes peeled for that. That's that. That's all I got.
Okay.
And now we should do a show.
Yeah, let's do a show.
Let's do a show. Well, you got to catch up. They'll wonder if we don't tell them.
No. That's all good. That's all good. I'm glad you got to go.
I was so bad about posting pictures from Mystic South.
We did get some though.
Well, that's because I sent them to our sound guy and he posted them. I was like, here's some pictures, and he shared them. He doesn't let me on the socials. No, I don't get to touch all that stuff.
You're restricted.
I'll break it. I'm so terrible about social media stuff. It's not where my talents lie.
Not your forte.
No, and I forget about it. People have content going all the time, and I'm like, whew, that's exhausting. I don't know how you do that. I gotta go take care of my kids.
That's because you teach your kids at home too. So
That's
you
true.
have a whole lot of stuff going on all the time anyway.
I feel like I still wouldn't even if I didn't.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no.
Okay. That's cool.
But anyway. All right, let's talk about our show. So we're still doing working our way through the gifts of the goddess. And this one is a fun one. We've sort of done an episode that deals with this topic already. I'll tell you what our topic is. So this is the power to understand the secret signs. So in our tradition, it's to understand the secret signs of the hands, stars, cards, and omens. That's an abbreviation. That means all sorts of divination, all sorts of interpreting messages from spirit, from the universe, from deity, from the world around you. So we've done a divination episode. That was episode, he just told me that episode 47. But I want to talk about how this sort of relates to the gifts of the goddess.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
As for the gifts of the goddess, we've talked about this a couple of times, but if you missed the introductory episode, these are sort of the talents, the blessings that witches have. And it's not limited to just witches. Right. It's just that those are the people who are inclined to see and hear and think and operate in that way tend to be witches or spiritual practitioners or psychics or mediums or things like that.
Right.
So I kind of, for me, when I look at somebody that has those skills, I see witch, but that's my paradigm. They may not call themselves that, and that's okay. that's fine. So I just want to be clear that when I say these are the blessings, that are to witches, that's coming through my perspective, my lens. But anyway, but we all have the ability, like as humans, to perceive and understand the messages around us.
Right.
So I guess that one of the first things that is mentioned in this particular gift is understanding the signs of the hand. So that's kind of talking about palmistry. That's talking about reading the different lines of the hands and the positions of the fingers, lengths of the fingers. All these different things tell you about your life path. You know what I mean? And I don't study palmistry personally. I haven't gone in depth with it.
Right.
But it's really interesting to explore. It's very interesting. So that's the first one, you know. And then the other is the stars. So that's talking about astrology. That's talking about understanding, the pattern of the cosmos. And the way that works is that it's a reflection. So in a lot of witchcraft, and I'm just going to use witchcraft as a catch-all term, so don't come at me.
We are a show about witchcraft.
It is a show about witchcraft, but I understand that it doesn't always fit into witchcraft. Other people can still use this. Anyway, whatever. Okay. It's a reflection of what's happening here. As above, so below. So you have the macrocosm of the pattern of the stars is reflected in the patterns of what's happening here energetically. So that's basically what that's talking about. To understand the stars is to be able to read the stars, to read what's coming in the stars. Even down to, I think this goes back to even just understanding what season is coming next and how close we are to the change in the season based on the stars that are appearing in the sky at that time, to be able to navigate based on the stars, This wasn't something that was so removed from people's lives. Right. Of course, the way we look at it now, and then, in early astrologers, of course, they had a more in-depth way of looking at it than, I guess, sort of the average person. But that's what that's about. It's about being able to find the patterns that are there and understand how that translates into what's going on in your day-to-day life and in the oversoul of, your nation and kind of global events that are happening. So that's what that one is about. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It's a big subject to understand. It is a big subject. There's a few. If you're new to astrology and you want to learn more about it, there's a few books that I would recommend. One of them is The Inner Sky. Who's the author? I don't remember. I should have looked this up before I got here. The Inner Sky. Forrest. Is it Forrest? Forrest might be the last name. And then the other one is Practical Astrology by Dominguez Jr. That's an excellent one. Yeah, if you want to learn more about astrology. And it's a lifetime of study, so I highly encourage you to do some reading on it, because it's not the horoscopes that you get, in your coffee news. Yeah, so do go and explore that. It has a lot of mysteries to teach you just about the process of life and sort of the, growing your soul, like expanding your experience beyond just like, am I gonna find love next Tuesday? No, that's not what it is. But it can be, but it's not. And then the next thing is understanding the signs of the cards. So obviously that refers to cartomancy. So that's tarot, that's oracles, even playing cards. Right. There are whole divination systems around just a regular pack of playing cards. That's the first thing I learned on, actually. And you can make your own divination systems as well, because you have the power to understand the signs, right? So your understanding of the signs is just as valid as these systems that are set up. So that's one of the things in my tradition in your tradition too, that we do pretty early on is create our own system of divination. And some of them, you use for a little while and you're like, okay, I did that assignment. But some of them have continued on and developed a whole system that has now become part of their career, of working with divination.
Okay.
And then of course your tarot and your oracles and all your various different ways of and even just the tarot alone, like there's the tarot, there's how, the mechanics of the tarot, there's all of the history and mysticism behind the tarot. But then people also just use them intuitively as well.
Right.
Where you just lay out the cards and you're in a mindset where you're interpreting the images, and you're receiving messages, even though you're not necessarily reading them as they are designed to be read. Does that make sense? So that is still a form of cartomancy. I don't necessarily refer to that as tarot, but because it's not using the system, but it's still divination. It still works. It still counts. It's just as valid. You're just using a different set of images. Otherwise, oracle cards would not work.
Right.
You can use a tarot deck as an oracle. And then you have oracle cards, which there's so many different ones. You all see them all the time. They're advertised absolutely everywhere. But they have different images on them to sort of give the universe a language in which to communicate with you. And the more you practice it and the more you develop, that language, the more you immerse yourself in it, it's like learning any language. You can learn the words and you can constantly go back and forth to a language dictionary and try to translate English to whatever, but it's not always a this for that translation. In fact, it's rarely a this for that type of translation. And the same thing is true when you're working with divination, when you're working with communicating with spirits. There's not always a direct translation. You have to sort of immerse yourself in that world and in those communications. And slowly, you start to understand what the messages mean. And I think that's a part that people, just kind of overlook or gloss over, or I don't know. I don't know if it's sort of feeling insecure about, it has to match this meaning. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
but
it does.
Not necessarily. What you're getting intuitively count. Look, I am sweating to death over here. I'm
You're
just
fine.
just melting. But that's part of it, and part of the work is really exploring that. That's why when you're starting to learn tarot or any kind of card system, people will tell you to sleep with the deck under your pillow. You just kind of glean meaning through osmosis. I do that when I'm taking a class. I sleep with a book under my pillow and just absorb it while I'm dreaming. It helps.
It does.
But just immersing yourself with that deck, developing a relationship with that deck, and the imagery in the deck. So people will tell you to pull a card every day. That's a great way to get used to the deck. And then, write down your impressions of it first. Then read the meanings, read the historical context, read all of those things, because there's layers and layers and layers of meaning. One card is almost never, I'm saying almost never, but I really mean never, just a single solitary, this has one meaning and one meaning only.
Right.
It's always going to be in context of the cards around it. It's going to be, they have layers of meaning. Like each card itself represents a whole world of meaning. Like they're portals, they're gateways into a particular realm of energy, a realm of consciousness. And those are complex, so it does take time, and it's more than just, you follow somebody on TikTok and they've got, and they show you a card a day and a keyword. It's not that. It's really immersing yourself in that language. It's really creating a relationship with the spirits of the deck. And the deck itself is sort of like a hive mind of all the individual cards in the deck. And when you add cards to a deck, that changes the energy. A lot of readers will have several decks and they use different ones for different things. Because, maybe this deck is great for career advice, and that deck is great for spiritual, growth, or whatever it is. And they will divine, okay, which deck do I need for this reading?
Right.
And some people will buy several decks and then combine them into a completely personalized deck that works well for them and for the spirits that they work with. And I think there's just so many ways that you can work with cartomancy. It's so easy, to put a lot of meaning and a lot of impact in, a space that you can hold in your hands.
Right.
So that's one of my favorite methods of divination, and of reading the signs. I could talk about that all day, but I won't. I feel like I've already talked about it all day. The next thing on our list was omens. So omens are interesting. Omens and portents, which are used synonymously. In certain traditions, they may have slightly different meanings, but in general, they're used synonymously. And those are the signs that you just read in the world around you. Those are the signs you read in the change of the weather. You read in
the way the animals react.
The way the animals react. The way, the phone rings at a particular time after you've said, you said something specific and then the phone rings in that moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's I just got distracted by leaves falling. Sorry. And the way the birds fly over, that sort of stuff. Those are omens. So there's lots of different ways to interpret omens. And depending on your tradition, you may have specific things that are part of the poetry and part of the work of that tradition. But you may not have anything, they may be considered more superstition. But, I'm from the South. We hold a lot of store in superstition.
Yeah,
so one of the ways that you can work with omens, I'm sorry, a hummingbird came over to the feeder and it's empty and now I feel like a jerk. I'm going to fill that feeder up just as soon as we're done, I promise. I'm sorry. He flew away. What was I talking about? See, that was an omen that I need to fill the feeder. No, but I had 6 deer in my yard this morning. Look, you see that bird? What is that? I'm sorry. It's big.
Where are you talking about?
Hold on, it'll flap away in a minute and you'll be like, oh, there it is. This is why we can't record outside. I'm just going to look directly at the camera. Omens. So a way that you can work with omens is if you specifically want to find one. Usually they just sort of appear. You know, you're out and you come out and there's 3 crows on your car. And what does that mean? Animals behaving oddly. You can kind of get yourself into a space where you're seeing omens everywhere. I would say avoid that, because not everything is an omen. Omens are things that stand out, like just now the hummingbird came to the feeder.
Right.
It's a hummingbird feeder. It's a hummingbird. It's summer. That's not unusual.
No.
If 15 hummingbirds came to the feeder and lined up on the porch in a row,
That'd be different.
and then flew away, I'd be like, wait a minute. So, and if they did that 2 or 3 times, usually if you see something 3 times, it's considered something that you need to pay attention to. But a way to work with omens, I keep trying to say this and I keep not. You can deliberately ask a question. You can ask, your guides or your spirits, whoever you work with, just the universe in general. I think I hit the microphone. Was it loud? Probably. Anyway, you can just ask your question, that you need clarity about. Ask your question, walk outside, and the first 3 things that come to you, like the first things that you see or hear that come to you, you take those things together and try to interpret the message out of them. And, you would think, okay. But when you do it, it's kind of shocking how much, if you're paying attention, if you're listening, if you're watching with the kind of eyes that are reading those patterns, you can get some really interesting insight into what's going on, because these patterns are always happening. It's not just like they come around every so often to tell you where you ought to go. The pattern is always there.
Right.
The pattern of what's to come, the pattern of what has been, the pattern of what is happening now is always present. You can always tune into it. You can always tune into where does this need to be? Where does this thread connect? What should I be doing now? Or else you would really have to time your divination,
Right.
which you can also do. There are more and lesser auspicious times to do divination, depending on what you're trying to do. But the pattern is there. If you look and if you listen, you will always see it. It's always playing out.
Right.
Even in, the movements of the animals, the changes in the weather patterns, which plants are popping up where. If you listen, if you work with, the green world, plants will pop up as needed. And often you'll see if you see unusual plants that have never been there before and they start popping up in abundance, pay attention to what their medicine is. Pay attention to what they heal biologically and spiritually, because I bet you're about to need that plant in your life. And you can say, well, the birds carried it. Well, sure, the birds carried it as part of the pattern. The birds deposited that seed there for a reason.
Yeah.
And I've had so many times where some kind of, our previous home, we had lived there for 15 years.
Right.
I know what grows there. It's the same every year. And then suddenly certain things would just pop up randomly. And usually it would be something that blooms for me. It would just catch my attention. Probably there was a lot of stuff going on, but I wasn't paying that much attention. Like I've recently had a whole bunch of yarrow pop up around a tree that wasn't there last year. So I'm just kind of like, first of all, second of all, what's coming up? But you will have the resources that you need are generally available. Pay attention to the people that pop up in your life, suddenly, and think about sort of what archetype are they? What role are they in your life? It can give you an indication of the lessons that are coming. Right. And if you're sort of prepared for those things, then they don't hit you like a windfall, You're going to be more balanced, good or bad, Good things can hit you and you're in a great place about it, and then sometimes those blessings can be curses. But if you're coming from a balanced state, then you're not going to be thrown off either way.
Right.
So having some forewarning is always helpful, I think. But people can get kind of swept away in the omens and suddenly everything's a sign or everything means they're doomed. I think about, what was the divination teacher in Harry Potter? Trelawney. Like everything was doom all the time, So you don't want to live like that. Yeah, maybe you do you? I don't know. But I don't want to live like that. No. So you that comes with discernment. That comes with keeping records and journaling, because memory is fuzzy. Memory is fuzzy.
It is very fuzzy. That's true.
Memory is wibbly wobbly. So if you see something and you think, okay, this is what my interpretation was, and then you come back to that later, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I didn't even put this together, or you're going to be like, whoo, I misread that. Where did I go wrong? Yeah. Because you often will see what you want to see out of it. So being able to distance yourself, being able to have that sort of detachment from the results, like if you're doing a reading for yourself and you're really attached to the outcome of the reading, you're going to read it however you want to.
Right.
If you can have some detachment, and then you're going to get a clearer visual of what's going on. So often it's helpful to have someone else read for you. So support your fellow readers, and they will support you. So I often will do trade-offs. I know a few really excellent readers that I trust completely, and when I'm like too much in my head or my feelings about something, that's who I go to, because they don't care. They're just reading the message,
Yeah.
So that's important. It's important to have those people around you to kind of keep you anchored.
Non-biased.
And your spirits too can sort of, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if your spirits are like, honey, that is not what that says, and you're like, shh, I'm always a little concerned when people's spirit guides are always affirming. They're always telling you how wonderful you are and your perfect place in the universe. I'm like, sounds like your spirits are a lot of brown nosers and you need to get some more spirits. But make friends with the ones that tell you when you're being an asshole. Yeah. Those are the ones. But they can't always be telling you you're an asshole unless you really need to do some work. But, you need to have a balance, because sometimes people will ally themselves with spirits that are kind of abusive.
Right.
You know, they're just like people.
Yeah, that's
people
true.
ally themselves with people that are kind of abusive
That's true,
or
too.
very abusive. So you have to find that balance. The hell am I talking about? Omens. Omens. Yeah. So that's that. That's kind of my spiel about this particular powerful witch. It's about being able to interpret the signs, and that goes into spirit communication and stuff like that, because they don't always speak in English, you know.
Right.
They don't always speak any sort of human language. They don't always speak in language, you know. They can speak in feeling. They can speak in colors. They can speak in symbols.
Visions.
Yeah. So you can't limit yourself to, and I think that's the difference. I think everybody has this ability as humans, but unless you're actively working to explore and learn the language of spirit, learn how to commune with sort of the pattern of the cosmos, then you're not really going to be inclined to pick up these signals. And that's why it's one of the blessings of the goddess. That's why it's one of the blessings of the witch. And it's one of the ways we know our own people, you know, because we understand those patterns, we understand those signs, and we understand them not innately.
Right.
We don't just, not always. I mean, some people are very intuitive in that way, but even they have to work. It's work.
It is work.
So you have to want to put in the effort to understand that sort of mystery. You know, what's behind the veil? What is the deeper meaning here? When you have that desire, to me, that's what makes you a witch.
Right.
When you want to explore the deeper mysteries. I was a mermaid. I was a mermaid just now. So one of my secret desires is to buy one of those gorgeous, like, silicone mermaid tails. Yes. And then just go travel the world and be a mermaid.
That'd be fun. We could
swim around in fish tanks for money. Go jump in the sea.
You got the hair for it, that's for sure.
I do. Did you notice I cut my hair?
Yeah, I did.
I cut like almost 18 inches off of my hair.
Wow.
I know. And it's all fuzzy now. I wish it was long enough that I could braid it.
Fuzzy because of the humidity.
Because the humidity. I'm melting. So what kind of divination stuff do you work with? How do your spirits talk to you? I feel like I'm running my mouth.
No, you're fine. I see a lot of, I guess, omens, signs, things like that. I've actually, on a little personal note, have actually been getting a lot of spiritual communication for some reason here
Is it
recently.
like lately?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it has something to do with one of my coworkers.
Oh.
We tend to light things up when we're together.
Yeah. Yeah, you've mentioned that.
Yeah. So I have had things like that pop up. But animal signs, things like that have always been within my growing up. I was told that when the cows are laying down in the field, the fishing's not good that day. You gotta wait till they're up. Little things like that. And down here in the South, we have a lot of what I call isms.
Yeah, we do have a lot of isms. We've got a lot of isms, actually.
So I pay attention. If I see a red hawk cross my path, it usually means that there's danger ahead. It doesn't necessarily mean where I'm at the moment. It could be in my near future. So I tend to pay a little bit more attention. Just little things like that. I recently had an actual, I'm interested in the tarot. I haven't played with it a lot. I've done the 1 card a day thing before. Don't care for, what are the name, because I want to
the Rider-Waite-Smith.
The Rider-Waite-Smith, I don't like them. I don't know what it is about the images on them or the colors or whatever. It just doesn't pop out for me. But I recently had a deck literally jump at me. And I ended up ordering them, and it was online.
Have they come in yet?
Yeah, I have them.
Oh, you showed them to me. That was the ones. Yes. Those are beautiful.
Yeah. And so that was a first for me. And I mean, I've been doing this for years. That was the first set to actually say, yeah, we're the ones that you need. So that was interesting.
No, I've had that same experience when I was coming up back in the day in the witchcraft world. It was very there was a lot of you have to start with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And the more I've learned, the more I understand why they said that. Because there are, the imagery on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck relates a lot to later work.
Right.
But not everybody. But that's not necessarily helpful for everybody, especially at the beginning. So I, being difficult, like I tend to be,
No.
not me. I was the same. I was like,
Yeah.
the artwork doesn't scream it to me. It's just like, it's not talking to me. And I don't know, I went through a long period of like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do it?
Been there too.
And then I came across another deck that's based on the same imagery, but the artwork speaks to me.
Right.
And and that deck felt alive in my hands. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use this deck. And it wasn't necessarily what most people would consider a contacted deck. And it was using a lot of the same imagery. Some things are using very different imagery for each of the cards. So this is similar imagery, but very different artwork. And I could understand the meanings. Like, it made sense to me.
Right.
And this whole world just sort of opened up. And from that, then it was easier for me to connect with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And as I was studying Hermetic Kabbalah and things like that, the imagery in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck made more sense. And I was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
And that imagery was not present in this first deck. But at the time I was at, what was more helpful for me was to use the deck that spoke to me. So I will always say, use the motherfucking deck that speaks to you. If you're getting messages and they're accurate and they're helpful, use that.
Yeah.
And it may evolve your understanding, and it may help you connect to, if you're learning in a tradition and they have a specific ways to work with tarot, it may help your understanding of that. And, there may be a method to the madness. Your teacher may have a reason that you don't know yet because you're just learning.
Right.
But generally, I would say, in your free time, if there's a deck that speaks to you, use that. Period. Yeah. End of discussion. And there may not be one that's the only deck that speaks to you either. It could be an opening to deeper understandings later. So you did exactly what you should do.
And I've got oracle decks. I've got animal. I think it's an animal totem deck.
Yeah.
That I really like. That's the first one that I ever worked with, was that one. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna find what you like and what speaks to you and use that.
I mean, all sorts of things. It doesn't necessarily even have to be what you would imagine as standard divination, cards and pendulums and all sorts of things. Like, you can literally pick up things in your yard and create your own system. You can create a bone set of, maybe it has a hazelnut from your yard. Maybe it has a little twig of oak, and that means a certain thing to you. Maybe it has mine has like a dried magnolia pod, because that has meaning for me. Little bones, runes, all sorts of things.
I've been looking into runes here lately too, yeah.
And you can grab what you need out of it and create like a throwing set for divination. You can draw from a pouch for that kind of set. You can create all sorts of divination sets, and then just like the ways to read them too. Like, how do you lay them out? What kind of cloth do you put them on?
Right.
If you've got a throwing set, how's the cloth divided? Is it divided by the 4 elements? Is it divided by is it divided out like in the 12 houses, like an astrology chart? How are you working with it? Did you divide it into 3 and make like a world tree situation, or a past, present, future? There's so much you can do.
Yeah.
But you have to just immerse yourself in it and play, and speak to the universe as well.
Right.
You can't always be doing the speaking, but you can't always be doing the listening either, or you're sort of abdicating your power in that.
I like working with a pendulum too.
Pendulums, I like pendulums. I work well with pendulums. Some people don't. I was kind of surprised, because pendulums for me was one of the first things that I would get accurate stuff, and it's so easy, right? It's so easy.
First pendulum I played with was a family member taught me how to just run a string and stick a pin in the top of an eraser of a pencil.
Oh, nice.
We used it with the pencil as the pendulum, and it worked.
My grandmother would use a sewing needle on a thread, and she would like divine the babies, who's going to be born.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
how many babies would you have or whatever.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
They don't say it that way.
No, they don't.
But that's
call it
okay.
that.
What was I talking about? Pendulums. Oh, but I've heard recently from a lot of people that pendulums just don't work for them, and I was just like, okay.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, for some, the tarot doesn't work for them, and
You're right.
things like that. It's everybody's different.
I know. Well, I mean, I know, but it just caught me off guard.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
That's one of the simplest things that you can do.
It's a pendulum, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be a matter of the material you're using
Could be.
as well, because Aoife, who's on this show,
Mm-hmm.
she did not connect with pendulums until she just played with a bunch of different ones, and eventually she found one that worked for her.
Oh.
And it was like, I don't remember what she said. It was a particular metal or stone or wood, but whatever it is, try to change up your material before you give up on pendulums altogether.
Yeah, that's true too.
But yeah.
So there's
Good
a
time.
lot of different ways you can do divination.
Are we done? I just
I don't
melted.
know.
I got too
Are
hot.
we done?
That's all I had to say. That's all. I
Okay.
don't know how long we've been going. How long have we been going, sound guy? We're fine. He did that.
Yeah, we're
Yeah, so that's our show, I think. I feel like we could keep going, but we should
could.
probably stop before we melt.
good. It is hot.
So yeah, to sum up, come see me at Temple Fest. That's my summing up. Yeah, and we'll be back next episode. It's going to be Christopher Penzak. Hello, Christopher. Episode
Christopher.
69, which I find delightful.
Oh, awesome.
Will be Christopher. And we recorded that a while back, so I don't remember what we were talking about, but I know
Okay.
that it was good. So
Well,
tune
Christopher
in
has
next
to
week.
be.
I should have reviewed it before I opened my mouth.
You're good.
But it was, here we are. It's too late. So tune in next episode for that. And then after that, it's going to be us again, and we're going to be talking about communing with animals, the power to commune with animals. And Luna is taking the lead on that one. So I can't wait for that episode.
Very excited.
That's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Got anything?
No, stay in the AC, y'all.
Stay in the AC. Don't sit out here and melt like us.
Right.
Oh, Lord. All right. Well, you guys have an excellent summer. Whatever you're doing, don't melt. And we'll catch you next time. Blessed be.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you all so much for listening, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. It helps us get our podcast in front of more listeners just like you. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can leave us a voicemail by clicking the link in the description of this episode, and you can always find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Crossroads and Cauldrons Podcast.